Hello, HomeInspire. Welcome to the warehouse in Clerkenwell, central London. Please do come in, let's show you around. So my name's Marta Nowicka and I'm an interior architect and developer. The building was built in Edwardian times and originally was a cigar and wine warehouse. I purchased it in the end of the 90s from a lithographic printer. It was very much an industrial warehouse when we purchased it, and we lived in that condition and state of the building for several years and got a feel for the space, and actually went up on the roof and noticed that we had the best view in Clerkenwell, which you'll see later. I realized that I had to make it into a couple of units at least to be able to fund the main space that we're now living in. So I got planning for a development of 3 units, 2 two-bed units and this, the penthouse, which is a 3-bedroomed unit. So you enter into the library study. The design decisions which led the concept was that we wanted to keep the whole flavour of a warehouse, and a lot of warehouses have a lot of exposed brick, which is great. It gives a lot of texture and warmth and shows a patina of aged brick, which is really beautiful. And I wanted to contrast that with a lot of steel and glass, which is sort of very modern and high tech. By using glass, it actually keeps the space as open as possible and lets the light through. The staircase is actually cantilevered. I designed it in my 2nd year at Kingston, and a concrete floor, which has got underfloor heating. And we've actually used glass in the floors, so it lets light through into the basement, because we actually dug down to create a basement area, which is really useful for storage and utility and maximizes the space that we could use. So the design of the basement was inspired by the local Barbican. I wanted to have shuttered concrete, which actually had the texture of the shuttering, the timber that was used to shutter it, and exposed beams. So this is a very kind of brutalist concrete environment, which contrasts well the sort of bricky warehouse feel of the rest of the space. So we used the basement as a utility area and also storage, much needed in a minimal house, and also workspace for my partner. There's a bedroom on the ground floor with an ensuite bathroom, as planning requires new developments to have an accessible bedroom and shower and loo on the ground floor in case of any disabilities. This room actually used to be the old stable of the wine warehouse, and when we purchased it and took away the suspended floor, there was a soak-away drain in the middle of this room, and it had stable doors here, which you can sort of see we emulated them within the planning requirements. And this interesting artwork is actually the render of the exterior of the building. When we were cutting one of the windows onto a 1st floor bedroom, this render just fell off in one piece, and it's an imprint of the bricks, which I thought was just such a beautiful texture. So now let's go upstairs and I'll show you the 1st floor. Come on. So welcome to the bathroom. This is the master bathroom and the pièce de résistance. It's mirrored, the walls are mirrored and the ceiling's mirrored. So we get an infinite reflection here. It's great fun, everybody loves it. In fact, one person was quite drunk here once and couldn't get out. We've got a jacuzzi bath and natural light coming from above. So when you lie in the bath, you can actually look at the sky and the clouds and the trees, and it's got a really large basin and lots of reflection. Also on this floor we have the master bedroom, so let's walk this way and have a look. So the master bedroom has a loading bay door. So originally in Edwardian times they would have loaded the hay in through that door. Also had a fireplace fireplace, hey, not a good combo. Anyway, but a fireplace which we use and has a really lovely ambience with the fire on. And here we have a small ensuite, mirrored ensuite, and it's just a shower and basin, which is really handy to have that ensuite. And the flooring throughout the warehouse is smoked oak, which has a really dark, beautiful patina, and it contrasts the existing brick really well. And this is my son's bedroom, which actually leads into the master bathroom, so it's his ensuite. Sadly now he's moved out of home, which is heartbreaking, but there you go. It's got a raised bed, which is really useful for a lot of storage underneath. So he's got huge drawers that pull all the way out. All the windows are timber sash windows, double glazed, and they are copies of the original windows that were here. Now let's go upstairs to the penthouse part of the building. So this part of the glazing here was inspired by my Georgian neighbours, who have this really beautiful, very long, thin, elegant Georgian window where their staircases are located. So I felt I could echo it architecturally and have a really long piece of glass here with the staircase adjacent it. So there's a dialogue between the old and the new. So when we purchased the building, we were aware that we were right next door to St. Luke's Church. However, didn't realise that we had like an optimum view of it. We climbed up onto the roof one time, sat here and just looked out at this incredible view, and that was the pivotal moment for the whole design and inspiration for this building, that we had to come up a story, and that this story would be the living space. So inverting the property, making the living space on the second floor. We noted that actually everybody has blinds and curtains which seem to be closed all the time. So we felt, well, we won't have blinds or curtains, so we keep the contact of this space with the view all the time. And we actually find that it just feels private because of all the leaves on the trees. Another key feature of our penthouse is that we have a green roof. So the roof is actually 300 millimeters of earth with a self-seeded lawn. Basically, the birds just seeded whatever they seeded, and we've got beautiful flowers in spring. And that creates wonderful insulation, which helps mitigate the heat in the summer, as does the cross ventilation, because this sheet of glass, which is huge, just opens all the way up here, and that whole elevation opens there. So we get this wonderful cross ventilation during the summer. The location of the stair, central in the space, meant that I didn't want to have obtrusive balustrades, so glass was obviously the natural option to make it as light visually and as fluid and naked as possible. So we keep that visual fluidity running through the space. Next door to the kitchen. The kitchen is a 9-meter kitchen. The units are a fantastic German company called Rockpunkt, and I really recommend them because they are wonderfully engineered and nothing ever goes wrong with them. So I'm so pleased with it. I've actually used them on all my developments. And the kitchen here, we wanted to have visual privacy in this part because it's very much a kind of doing area, very busy in the kitchen. We're always cooking, we love cooking. So it gives us visual privacy, but actually when you sit down in the seating area, you actually have visual contact with the context of the landscape and what's around you. And in case you're wondering where the fridge is, we have these very sneaky drawer fridges, which are really brilliant, store everything, and it's massive space and it's integrated within the counter, which is really cool. So here we have the sitting area, which is really cozy. It's got a wood burner, a great view of the terrace, and still a view of St. Luke's. In summer, these glazed panels slide all the way back, so we have this fantastic connection with the inside and outside of the space. Here we've got 2 terraces lined with bamboo, which is great for privacy from our neighbours. And this is a really big terrace, which is south-west facing, so we get a lot of sunlight when it's sunny, and it's just a beautiful space for enjoying drinks, hanging out, chatting. It's another sitting area, really comfortable seats, and the connection with St. Luke's again, which is really stunning. So going back to when we were building this project, it was actually really quite a complicated, difficult build, because as you can see, there are buildings all around us and we're very close to our neighbours. We had to do 9 party walls, and we had very complicated scaffolding, and we had a lot of conversations, a lot of issues that we had to mitigate to actually build this. So it was a real challenge, and it took 2 years to build it, but we're obviously so happy with the results. It's a home for life, which is really priceless. Thank you so much, HomeInspire, for selecting our property to be on your wonderful site. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hi HomeInspire, welcome to my converted loft apartment in East London. Come in and I'll show you around. So I bought the flat in 2016. When I first bought it, it didn't look anything like it looks now. Initially, I had plans to maybe move a wall or 2, but in the end we ended up just deciding to dismantle the whole thing and start from scratch and build again. It's a converted school, so it was a school built sometime in the Victorian period, couldn't give you the exact date, and then it was converted in the 1980s into flats, and each flat in the building was essentially a room in the school. So one flat is the gym, one flat is, or various flats are classrooms. This flat, as I understand, was once a classroom. So this is the entrance hall, which is quite similar to how it was when I first bought the flat. In the old design, you'd come in through the front door here and you'd turn left straight away to a small door that was here, which took you into the main living space. These stairs weren't here at all. There was just a wall that was here. And there was also just a wall on this side as well, with a bathroom on the other side. That bathroom's now gone, and we've put in a smaller downstairs loo area. So this is the main living space, as you can see. So this really has changed from when I first bought the flat. When you came in through this door that was just to my left, you'd walk into the double height space, which ran from here to that back wall. So in that case, you had only 2 windows worth of the double height ceiling. That living space was all pushed down one end. So as you can see, obviously now we've put a mezzanine up in that space, which is kind of one of the windows wide, and that's one of my bedrooms. And then underneath, we've kind of turned it into a more kind of practical living space. So I've put in shelves, and there's a TV area and a workstation as well. So it's still functioning as a living space, but it's just more practical. The paintings are by a Spanish artist called Albert Medulla, and I actually had them commissioned a couple of years ago specifically for this space. He has quite a distinctive style, so I knew that he did these kind of bright coloured faces, and so I really wanted something that really stood out amongst those kind of muted colours. Neither of them are me. People ask me that all the time. Also, you can see obviously the exposed brickwork. That was all plastered over when I first bought the flat, and obviously I wanted to give it that kind of lofty, sort of rustic textured feeling, so we ended up stripping all that plasterwork off the bricks, which I think makes for a really, really nice effect, particularly with the dark painted shutters. So the only thing that we've actually kept from the original flat, or at least one of the only things, are the floorboards. So these floorboards, I believe, were here in the classroom back in the Victorian times where this building was functioning as a school. And they're beautiful floorboards, and we wanted to keep them. So we took them up, put in some sound insulation underneath, because the sound insulation in this building was appalling, and you could honestly hear the neighbours speaking downstairs and upstairs before we put it in. And we like to have a party, so we wanted to make sure that we weren't bothering our neighbours too much when we had people around. So we put a double layer of sound insulation underneath. We then put underfloor heating down as well, and then put the floorboards back on top. And what we also found was when we took up the floor, we found some older floorboards. The builders were going to chuck them out, and I said to them they were far too nice to throw out. So what we ended up doing was using them to make these make these shelves. So these are all the old floorboards that we found underneath. So looking at the mezzanine floors that we put in, one of the challenges was that standard floor depth is something like about a foot. And if we use those measurements, we would lose a lot of ceiling height above and below. And given that I'm 6'1", it made sort of it a bit too tight for me to be underneath. So what we ended up doing was we got a specialist engineer in to put in these floors. Don't ask me what the technicalities are of how they did it, but basically they had this sort of engineering technique which allowed them to make the floors much, much thinner and much more compact. So where we're standing now, there was actually a mezzanine floor that came from that far wall all the way over to this pillar here, and as I mentioned before, it was quite low, so when I was underneath it, I was almost banging my head on it. But that made for a large kind of open mezzanine floor upstairs, which was actually open to the downstairs. Looked cool, but kind of not that practical for a bedroom if your bed is literally exposed to what's happening downstairs and cooking and all that kind of stuff. So we took out that mezzanine floor entirely, so you have now the benefit of this really nice 3-window wide kind of open living space, which we really wanted to kind of capitalize on as part of the design, because that's what makes these buildings kind of so interesting and special. In terms of what it looked like down here, the kitchen was in an L shape that was kind of here and cut across the room to here. So you can imagine sort of kitchen area here, mezzanine coming along the top to about here, and then this sort of this open double height space down this far end. So people always ask me about these horns that are on the windowsill and ask me why I have elephant tusk kind of contraband in my flat. They're not elephant tusks, they are from a certain type of Highland cow, I think. The other thing to mention is the table. So the table is actually made out of old scaffolding boards, and the thinking there was that obviously we needed a huge table to fill the space, and buying a kind of proper dining room table to put in it would have been like ridiculously expensive. So we were like, why don't we just use these old boards, stick them on a frame, and that's the table that we now have had since we moved in. So in the space that we're in now was a sort of very narrow room, I think, that was used as a dressing room. So it basically was the width of the window. And then if we carry on into the next room, there was a slightly larger room here. Again, it didn't seem to have any kind of practical utility. The thing about it though that was really interesting was that in this corner here, there was essentially what was a spiral staircase, but it was made out of drawers that were all kind of stacked on top of each other and rotated up to the floor above. Cool part of a design which I would have loved to have kept, but there was just nowhere to use it. So in this space, which is now my utility room / larder, which is actually probably one of my favorite rooms in the house. I think the first thing that we put into the design, because I hate having clothes hanging up in like bedrooms or in living spaces. Before it was a bathroom. So we took all that out and put this in, and then built in some cupboards, a space for the fridge, and also like the boiler. For some reason we couldn't have a combi boiler, so we had to put a cylinder in there as well. So this is the kitchen. This flat is obviously kind of built for entertaining. I personally love to cook, so I really wanted like a large kitchen which could have plenty of space to make and prepare food, and also to store like 1,000 utensils, which I seem to collect over time. Obviously big cooker with 6 hobs, which I use all the time. And then the rest of the kitchen, you know, again, it's all sort of open plan. The idea being that I can prepare food here whilst talking to my guests. The sign, I didn't have it commissioned. It was given to me by a friend of mine for my 18th or 21st birthday, I can't actually remember which. She saw it when she was on a night out in South London and decided that she would go back on a separate night with a load of tools in her bag to nick the sign and gave it to me as a present. So we're now on the mezzanine floor, and we've come up the new stairs that I've put in. So we've now come up onto this first floor. This is now a dressing area, I guess. So on my left, we've got built-in cupboards, and that's kind of like 3 wardrobes worth of space, which is great because I'm not great at throwing things away, and they do tend to accumulate. So the more space, the better. This is the bathroom for the master bedroom. It's got a bath, it's got a shower, and there's a loo tucked around the corner as well. The design here was actually something I'd seen in a hotel room. I really like that kind of white metro tile with the kind of black detailing. So I kind of just pilfered that and replicated it here. And I think it's actually worked out quite nicely. So this is the master bedroom. This is my bedroom. Both bedrooms are actually exactly the same size. They're kind of dictated by the width of the window. So basically where we had to make the most compromise in the design. Because obviously, ideally, I would have liked to have a bigger bedroom, but we were sort of limited by the fabric of the building itself. I had this idea of making the walls into this crystal glass effect window style, so that when the curtains were open, it didn't feel like it was a really tiny kind of enclosed space. It obviously lets in all the light. I think it feels bigger, and it also just kind of adds to that sort of lofty industrial feel, which is what I wanted to create. So this is one of the original steels that was here, again, when we first bought the flat. Obviously, it's like holding up the floor above. When I first bought the flat, it was this really lovely kind of rusted, slightly burnt orange color, which I actually really, really liked, and I didn't want to change it. But because of fire regulations, unfortunately, it had to be painted with this kind of slightly shiny, flame-proof paint. But I'm kind of totally used to it now, so it doesn't really bother me. But it's a nice feature in the room, and the beams continue across the whole flat. I also put in these velvet curtains. I feel like there's so much texture in this flat, you know, with the wood and the brickwork and all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of wanted to continue that sort of rich, textured feeling, and that's why I had this idea of having these really sort of dense, heavy, kind of slightly opulent velvet curtains. And I think they kind of work quite nicely. And also they're completely black out, which is fabulous. So now we're in what was the old bell tower of the school. It's not connected to my flat. It's actually, you have to go out the front door, go all the way up the stairs, right to the top of the building, and it has its own little front door. So it's a sort of self-contained little unit that sits on the top of the school. Why does it belong to my flat? I have absolutely no idea. I think what happened was the previous owner of my flat had the opportunity to buy it from the freeholder that owns the whole building, and I guess it was kind of auctioned off to the highest bidder. So it's this kind of quirky space that sits on top of the building and also has a bit of outside space as well, which I'll show you in a second. So this has been completely converted as well since I bought it. It's been a torturous project. Basically everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong, but we are very, very, very close to having it finished. All this joinery is all being kind of custom made. Because the space is so small, everything kind of had to be custom to actually fit in the space. We had the benefit of height, but not the benefit of width. So you've got a kind of kitchen unit here. There's no cooking facility, and we're not going to put one in, but the idea is you've got a sink and somewhere to make a coffee, and there'll be a fridge under here. So you've got sort of at least like some way to have some refreshments. And then on this side, you've got a bathroom, which has been completely kind of waterproofed. Well, at least it should have been. And so you've got a shower, sink and a loo as well. So you've got your kind of privacy. Obviously this closes, it's a bit like a train. It had been converted a long time ago, and there was a bed at the back of the room, which was kind of sunk into the floor. And there were some steps going down here like there are now, but the loo was in the middle of the room with no privacy whatsoever. And it was kind of built into the steps. So you kind of like lifted up one of the steps and there was the loo. And I thought that that wasn't really practical for what I wanted to use it for. So that's now gone. Got steps coming up here, got the bathroom in here, and then the plan is I'm having a sofa bed built at the moment, which will go into this space. Again, it needs to be custom made because everything's so tiny and narrow. And the idea is that that will pull out and you'll have a spare room up here as well. So this is the terrace outside of the tower. You come through these little windows here, and then this is my outside space, which still needs to be furnished and finished, but hopefully in the not too distant future, again, that will be done. You've obviously got the tower here. You've got a shower, should you want to wash yourself in front of like the entire London skyline. And then you've just got this like amazing panorama across London, which is absolutely stunning, almost 360 degrees, which is amazing given that it's not the tallest building, but just given its positioning, it just has this fantastic view. Plan to see, I will put some furniture out here and hopefully have a party at some point in the not too distant future. So thanks very much for watching, and thank you to HomeInspire for coming and looking at my converted loft and also the bell tower.
Hey HomeInspire, I'm Charisma. Welcome to my latest property development in London. Come on in and I'll show you around. I'm an architect and interior designer for Louis Vuitton, and I've taken this property completely back to brick. You're not going to believe the transformation that you're going to see. We extended to the rear, we extended 2 extensions to the loft and completely modernized the interiors, and I can't wait to show you around. This is one of my favorite features. It's some bespoke joinery that I've designed, and I love how the lighting on each of the shelves really kind of brings to life all of the things that we've collected over time, and it creates a great spot to display everything that you have. This is a hidden location for a TV, which we don't have in place yet, but it's a great hiding spot, and it's a very clever way that you can integrate TV joinery and not really making the TV as a main feature of your living space, instead making it more about the coming together around that. Over here, we have built in a window seat, but also hidden in some clever bits of storage, which are a really good idea of like using this space as something not just as seating, but you can have multifunctional use. So here we've elevated this whole room completely by adding in some bespoke moulding as well. It again ties back to what we have with the joinery and also following it through onto the ceiling as well. It really gives a bit more of a richness to that space as well. This is a beautiful light fixture that we have from Soho Home, and we've gone for a walnut wood instead of oak, which you'll see throughout the rest of the property. This is because you don't need to just stick to one type of wood when you're going for different materials. You need to find a way of balancing multiple things so it doesn't all look the same. Speaking of wood, we have a beautiful Versailles parquet on the floor here, and we transitioned through to more normal planks, but I really wanted to be able to define the living space separate from the dining, and it's really important when you do plan for open plan to be able to divide those zones up as well. So we actually arrived through these beautiful crystal doors, and you'll see this common language throughout the rest of the property. And what I also want to draw attention to is that you arrive into a central space, but it actually frames the living space beyond. And this stone you'll see elsewhere, and I'll tell you how we repurposed some of the stone we have elsewhere and used it to create a more dynamic feature in the living space. So this is probably the biggest transformation area that we've done. This here used to be the old external wall, and we've actually extended 5 meters to the rear and infilled the side of the house. You get this on a lot of 1920s, 1930s properties across London, and it's a great way that you can really maximize your kitchen space. So the intention for this extension was actually to blur the lines between what's old and what's new, and you'll see that through the way we have the glass interacting with the brick. And by having 0 frames, you could really maximize that modern feel that you have with the glass. The extension opens up into the kitchen, and we've got this kind of level change, and one of the biggest impacts that you can make is actually changing the volume of space that you emerge into, and it really creates that wow factor. Sometimes you have interior projects where you do the finishes, you change the flooring, you change the fixtures, but what really creates a wow moment, especially for this property, is that volume of space you emerge into. With this contrast between the old and the new, sometimes when you're going for a full modern design, it becomes a bit stark, I find, and I wanted to find a way to warm that up and not just go for the clean lines, and so we introduced wood into the kitchen. And this kind of links back to how we have the oak joinery elsewhere in the property, and there's this continuous language that you always feel there's a cohesive feel to the whole space. We've done something a bit different than doing your standard backsplash. Instead, I've taken the same worktop up through the wall and back through the upper part of the ceiling, and this creates more of a connection between your upper units and your lower, but also it feels like it's carved out of a single piece of stone, which always gives a bit more weight to a material, especially when it's not real stone. This in a kitchen, if you have a real stone, it's usually a lot more expensive, but to give an expensive feel, you can take that as a kind of guiding principle. Here we have a boiling water tap, which is one of my favourite features for a kitchen. This is from Clearwater and it's the perfect addition to any kitchen. Integrates it all in one. When we were first talking about the design of this extension, we were considering whether to go for a roof light option or up and over glazing. And the concern always is with up and over glazing that it can be quite expensive and it deters most people. But in this case, we worked out that actually the cost difference wasn't going to be too much. And so we went for the highest design impact option, which was always going to be the up and over glazing. And that's why we have this kind of colossal volume of space that you emerge into, and it really does give you that wow factor. Because the kitchen is northeast facing towards the garden, we were really going to struggle to get enough natural light into the dining space, which was more central into the property. And so it was key to go higher with the glazing, and the up and over just made sense to bring more of that natural light into that central dining space. So we've centrally in this space is a 2.4 metre long island by 1 metre in width. This space becomes really great for hosting, especially in the summers, because it's linked directly to the garden and you can really have that free-flowing indoor-outdoor space. So typically for a piece of glazing this big, you'll need a crane to lift it over a terraced property in order to get it into the back. But we managed to get this through the front door. Don't ask how. We had a team of really good builders and they were willing to help us get it through the front door. So here you have it. This came through the house. So we combined this with sliding doors, which also run straight up to the ceiling as well to really create that seamless look. We didn't only want to treat the inside of the house, we also looked at the garden as well and how it can serve as a backdrop to the whole property. And you'll see as we go up the property, you'll get beautiful views outside of this luscious green wall. This one's from Evergreen Direct. And to highlight the green wall, we've introduced lighting in the garden so that in the evenings when you're inside, you turn the lights on and it makes a really cozy outdoor feeling whilst you're cozy inside. Okay, now you've seen the ground floor, let's go upstairs. So in the hallway, we also included the same kind of paneling that we had in the living room to again just continue that same language upstairs to the rest of the property. So before we head upstairs to see the rest of the house, just wanted to point out there's a small WC down here, and here we've kept the existing stair, but we've modernized it by introducing these black spindles that really add that extra touch to the stair. So up here is a split level floor, which is common in a lot of London homes. What I did here was to actually move the partition so we have more of a generous bathroom and still a very good sized bedroom. So this is the smallest bedroom of the house, but it doesn't mean it's the least favourite. This one has a great view outside of the green wall, like I mentioned before. So rather than staring at brick when you wake up in the morning, you've got this luscious green wall. We also tied that idea of greenery back into the interior decor of this space as well. So you'll notice there's touches of green and lots of wood as well. So this is the family bathroom. We have a full width niche where we've introduced lighting, and it really creates that more spa-like feel in the bathroom. And not only that, we have a reeded glass for the shower screen. This whole house is fitted out as a smart home, and this is the Lutron system which controls the lighting and the heating. So previously, what we have here is an additional floor which never existed before. I've added 2 loft extensions, which I'll show you a bit later, but first let's have a look at one of the bedrooms. So in here we've got really great natural light, and I really wanted to amplify that by adding full height mirrors either side of the bed, and also this acts as a great way to frame the bed as a centerpiece as well. I added a touch of wallpaper to take away from that whole neutral feel. Instead, we're bringing in a bit more texture so you can frame it with a more of a visual anchor point. We have some beautiful hanging pendants either side of the bed as well. These are actually ceiling mounted rather than having typical wall lights or just a lamp. so it adds a nice touch. And the chandelier is from Pookie lights, and this again, it really elevates the space. It's a bit grander, but still understated. This bedroom also looks out onto the green wall as well, so you're never going to be able to ignore that green space. So the whole house actually has air conditioning, and we've concealed the air conditioning ducts. Rather than having those big bulky boxes that you often see as an afterthought, we've integrated them into the ceiling in a very clean finish. This is the master bedroom, which actually has a bespoke headboard, similar to what we did in the previous bedroom, but this time we've played with wallpaper and texture and framed it in a very distinctive way. This is a completely bespoke wardrobe, which has a secret lighting detail inside, which I'm going to show you. You can really draw attention to all of your clothes in that wardrobe. And then not only that, we've got a very clean, integrated finish on the outside, and inside I've paired it with walnut again, which again is the same lighting fixture downstairs, but instead we've introduced it into the wardrobe up here. That then just elevates your whole wardrobe space. So here, choosing the lighting was really important to complement the rest of the bedroom. We've gone for a linen chandelier with a black trim detail that then corresponds to the headboard as well, and some beautiful side lamps that also tie in with the whole look. This is the stair up to the new extension, which never existed before. One of the biggest challenges here was to make sure that the landing doesn't start feeling too small, and I think we've managed it by having very neutral interiors. Let me take you upstairs. So on the topic of it not feeling too enclosed, I've introduced a roof light right above the stairwell, which really amplifies the natural light coming in and doesn't make it feel so pokey. So up here, as it's completely new, I wanted to treat it more of an apartment feel within the rest of the house. Behind this crystal door, there is the wow factor of this property, but I'm going to show you that at the end. Come with me to see the apartment. So up here is the fourth bedroom to the property. So one of the biggest challenges with a loft conversion is low ceilings. And how do you make a loft feel like it has a taller ceiling than it actually does? Well, I did a little trick here, and you can tell me if it works in the comments. I integrated a great lighting detail into the headboard of this bed, and this gives the illusion that the ceiling is much higher than it actually is. In reality, it's 2.4 meters, but you won't know that. So throughout this property, I didn't want the furniture pieces, like the cupboards, to feel like cupboards, and instead I wanted to find clever ways to integrate them so you read it as part of the room and the architecture. Here, I've broken up the rhythm of this wall by introducing shelving, and again the same kind of lighting, which really creates a more dynamic look rather than it feeling really flat. So this wardrobe feels more like the wall rather than the wardrobe, and also hides some under roof storage before it becomes the headboard to the bed. We've opted for a very low level bed, more of a Japanese style, and actually I designed this because of the space. The space has a low ceiling, which I mentioned before. This is another way that you can really create an illusion of height by lowering all of your furniture. And you'll also see those hidden AC ducts as well. And we have these beautiful cast iron radiators from the Cast Iron Radiator Company. These are great for period properties like this because they're very appropriate for the time in which these type of properties were built. Then just to bring you back to that view again, here we have a frameless Juliet balcony, which looks out onto the garden and also that overflowing expanse of glass below as well. So up here, we actually had enough space to separate the bedroom space from a living space, which then looks out onto the garden. And it's just a really cozy breakout space from the rest of the bedroom. As we go down, we have glass balustrades so that we create a more open visibility throughout the top floor, blocking none of the views, and also the black detailing, which then ties back in to all of the accents we have in the rest of the property. Now this is the bit that you've been waiting for. This is the master bathroom, and we have huge ceiling heights in here, and again introducing the roof light to maximize and amplify that natural light. The bathtub and the double basins are from Lusso stone. All of the taps and fixtures are from JTP Plumbing, and the tiles are from Mandarin Stone. I love marble tiles for the bathroom, but they're not great for bathroom. They're really porous. Mandarin Stone actually do a porcelain dupe, and the quality is unmatched. We've got this nice purple veining, and it adds an extra touch. Rather than it feeling like a grey, you've got that touch of colour. So in here, the ceilings were really high. This was intentional, but it can create a lot of blank wall space. We've created a bit more interest by changing the patterning of the tile on the walls to create a more dynamic feel. So each of the basins are framed by a mirror that has lighting either side and frames that vanity unit really nicely in the rest of the space. So what luxury bathroom doesn't come complete without a balcony? Here is your very own private balcony. Again, we have that green wall so that as you arrive up from the stairs, you're not seeing the London skyline, instead you're seeing greenery again. This is one of 2 mansard roof extensions that we did, and they actually take an L shape, but they're stepped. We matched the same slate to the surrounding properties to keep a more homogeneous feel with the surrounding context. This is something you'll need to know during the planning process. Okay, in terms of space planning here, you would think that the balcony is more suited off the bedroom, but we've done it off the back of the bathroom. This is because if we had placed the bed where the bathroom currently is, you're not going to have much space. You're not maximising the floor plan of the actual loft space, and instead it becomes a very cramped area. What we want to do is to make it feel more expansive, and by doing the balcony off of the bathroom, you get a very luxurious morning routine feel. So again, it depends how you like to live your life, but I would be very happy to merge onto a nice balcony in the morning. It would be the perfect spot for yoga or take your coffee out here. I'd probably include a coffee machine in my lounge space over there and bring it out here on the balcony. So I think it's the perfect spot. That's a wrap for this tour. Thank you so much for watching, and if you would like to see more of this property, it is actually up for sale and you can check out the listing in the link below. And if you'd like to see more of what I do, you can check my Instagram, TikTok or YouTube at Design by Charisma. See you soon. Bye.